Good afternoon, everyone. Today I want to speak about something tender, something raw, a topic that at its heart touches on vulnerability, resilience, and the quiet ache many women carry being a woman, crave being a woman with no friends. It's a reality some face, whether by choice or circumstance, and it's one we don't often talk about. There's a persistent narrative in our society that ties loneliness to personal inadequacy, as if being alone is an indictment of one's character. We're subtly taught that being surrounded by people, friends, partners, colleagues is a sign of success and worth. When someone lacks those connections, it's easy to feel as though they've fallen short, that they're failing at something fundamental. But this is a harmful misconception. Loneliness is not a moral failure, it is a universal human experience. We've all been there, haven't we? Moments where the phone doesn't ring, invitations don't come, or the people around us feel more like strangers than companions. And in those moments, the temptation is to look inward and blame ourselves. We think, what's wrong with me, or why don't I fit in this inner dialogue, often compounds the pain, making the solitude feel heavier and more personal than it truly is. But let's take a step back and reframe this. Loneliness isn't a reflection of who you are. It's a reflection of the circumstances around you. Sometimes life places us in seasons where connection is harder to find. Maybe you've moved to a new city, shifted priorities, or simply outgrown relationships that no longer serve you. These shifts are natural and they happen to everyone. Yet, when we're in the thick of it, it's easy to believe the story that we are somehow at fault. Loneliness is a signal, not a judgment. It's your heart's way of saying, I crave connection, belonging, and closeness. This craving is a fundamental part of being human. It doesn't mean you're broken, it means you're alive and aware of your need for others. Instead of interpreting loneliness as a weakness, what if we saw it as a call to action? A reminder that connection is worth seeking, even when it feels out of reach. If we can let go of the shame that often accompanies loneliness, we open the door to possibility without the weight of self-blame. We can focus on what matters, creating opportunities to connect, being present in our own lives, and being open to the people who might step into our... And most importantly, we can learn to offer ourselves the kindness and compassion we so readily offer others. Loneliness is a chapter in your story, not the title of your book. It is temporary, not a permanent mark on your identity. When we find ourselves in a place of loneliness or disconnection, our minds often become the loudest critics. They weave stories about why we're in this place, stories that feel so convincing they begin to shape how we see ourselves in the world. These stories can be subtle, small whispers of doubt, or they can roar, drowning out any possibility of hope. Think about the narratives you might have told yourself at times. I'm too much for people, I'm not interesting enough, or people leave because I'm not worth staying for. These thoughts might start as fleeting moments of doubt, but the more they repeat, the more they take root. And once they're rooted, they influence not just how we see ourselves, but also how we interact with others. For example, if you believe you're too much, you might begin to hold back in conversations, not sharing your thoughts or feelings for fear of overwhelming others. If you believe you're not enough, you might withdraw, avoiding opportunities for connection altogether. The tragedy here is that the very behaviors these stories inspire can reinforce the loneliness they emerge from, creating a cycle that feels impossible to break. The thing about these stories is that they rarely come from nowhere. Often they're echoes of past experiences, relationships that hurt us, moments when we felt rejected, or cultural messages that told us we had to be a certain way to be loved. While those moments might have been real, the conclusions we draw from them often are not. Just because someone once made you feel small doesn't mean you are small. Just because you've been left out doesn't mean you're destined to be excluded forever. But here's the catch: these stories are powerful because we rarely challenge them. We accept them as truth without questioning their origins or validity. And yet, when we start to examine them, something incredible happens. We realize they are just that, stories. They're not facts, they're interpretations, and interpretations can change. What if, instead of believing the story that you're not enough, you told yourself a different one? What if you reminded yourself that you are worthy of connection simply because you exist? What if, instead of seeing rejection as proof of your inadequacy, you saw it as part of the human experience, something everyone faces at one time or another? Challenging these stories isn't about pretending everything is perfect or forcing positivity. It's about recognizing that the way you talk to yourself matters. It's about understanding that the narratives you hold on to can either keep you stuck or set you free. And the most beautiful thing, you have the power to rewrite them. Even if the new story feels unfamiliar at first, even if it takes time for your heart to believe it, every step you take toward a kinder, more compassionate narrative is a step toward breaking free from the trap. And in that freedom, you'll find space for connection, belonging, and hope. In a world that often celebrates perfection, strength, and self-reliance, being vulnerable can feel like the last thing you want to do. Vulnerability is risky, it's uncomfortable, it's exposing a part of yourself that could be misunderstood, rejected, or ignored. Yet it is also the very thing that creates genuine connection. Without vulnerability, relationships remain superficial and belonging feels just out of reach. When you think about the people you truly feel close to, the ones you trust, it's not their perfection that draws you in. It's their humanity, the moments when they let their guard down and allowed you to see their fears, dreams, and struggles. There's something deeply magnetic about honesty, about someone daring to say, "This is who I am," flaws and all, it invites us to do the same. But stepping into that kind of authenticity requires courage. It means opening ourselves up without guarantees, showing up even when the outcome is uncertain. Vulnerability might mean admitting, "I'm lonely," to someone who might not understand. It could mean reaching out for help when you're struggling or taking the first step in reconnecting with a friend you've drifted from. Each of these actions leaves us exposed, but they also create the opportunity for true connection. The fear, of course, is that vulnerability will lead to rejection. And sometimes it does. Not everyone will meet your openness with understanding or care. But here's the paradox: while vulnerability carries the risk of hurt, it's also the only way to find belonging. If you keep yourself hidden, if you only show the parts of you that feel safe or acceptable, the connections you make will always feel incomplete. You'll never know if someone truly accepts you because they've never seen the real you. It's important to remember that vulnerability isn't about oversharing or exposing every detail of your life. It's about being honest in a way that feels authentic to you. It's saying, "I don't have it all figured out," or "I care about this," even if it scares me to admit it. It's allowing yourself to be seen, not for who you think you should be, but for who you truly are. And when someone meets your vulnerability with kindness, something magical happens. You feel seen, not for the mask you wear, but for the person underneath. That's where belonging begins, not in perfection, but in shared humanity. Vulnerability also has a way of inspiring others. When you're willing to take the risk, you give others permission to do the same. Your openness creates a space where connection can thrive, where people feel safe to show up as their whole selves. It's a ripple effect, one act of courage leading to another. The pathway to belonging isn't paved with invulnerability. It's not about having all the answers or appearing flawless. It's about showing up as you are, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about trusting that no matter the outcome, being real is always worth it. And in that trust, you'll find that the connections you build will be deeper, truer, and more fulfilling than anything built on pretense or fear. We often imagine connection as something that just happens, like a magical moment where two people meet and instantly understand each other. While that can sometimes be true, for most of us, connection is not a single moment, it's a practice. It's built in the small, everyday choices we make to show up, engage, and try again, even when it feels hard. Many of us hold ourselves to impossible standards when it comes to building relationships. We think we need to be charming, always say the right things, or know exactly how to navigate every situation. And when we fall short of those expectations, we retreat, convinced that we're not good at connecting or that something about us is fundamentally wrong. But connection isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. Think about the relationships in your life that matter most. They weren't built in a day or through grand gestures alone. They grew over time through countless small interactions, conversations, shared experiences, and even the moments of conflict that required understanding and forgiveness. A connection is not about getting it right all the time, it's about showing up consistently and authentically. This means that you don't have to wait until you feel ready or perfect to connect with others. You don't need to have all the right words or the perfect setting. Sometimes the simplest action, sending a text to say you're thinking of someone, sharing a laugh over a silly joke, or being willing to listen without judgment, are the most powerful. Connection is built in the imperfect, everyday moments that remind us we're not alone. At times it can feel frustrating or even discouraging. Maybe you've tried reaching out and felt ignored. Maybe you've been vulnerable and weren't met with the response you hoped for. But like any practice, connection takes patience. Not every attempt will lead to a deep bond. And that's okay. It's the effort, the willingness to keep trying that matters. Each step you take, no matter how small, lays the foundation for the relationships that will eventually grow. Connection is also reciprocal. It's not just about finding people who will accept and support you, it's about being willing to do the same for others. Sometimes the best way to build a bridge is to ask, how can I show up for someone else today? When you focus on being present for others, you often find that they show up for you in return. Importantly, connection doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. It doesn't always mean lifelong friendships or profound conversations. It can be as simple as making eye contact, offering a genuine compliment, or sharing a moment of laughter with a stranger. These small acts of connection remind us of our shared humanity and help us feel a little less alone. The beauty of practicing connection is that it allows for growth. You don't have to be perfect at it. You can stumble, make mistakes, and start again. The relationships you build don't have to be flawless either. They just have to be real. When you let go of the pressure to get it right and focus on the practice itself, you create space for connection to flourish in ways you never expected. So the next time you feel the weight of loneliness or the fear of reaching out, remember this connection isn't about a single perfect moment. It's about the ongoing imperfect effort to show up for yourself, for others, and for the relationships that bring meaning to your life. In a world that constantly tells us we need to be part of something bigger, a circle of friends, a relationship, a community, it's easy to forget the most essential belonging of all the belonging you owe to yourself. Before you can find connection with others, before you can truly feel at home in the world, you must first feel at home with yourself. This is not always an easy journey, but it is one worth taking. Belonging to yourself means embracing who you are without conditions or exceptions. It's the decision to stand by yourself even when others don't. It's giving yourself the grace to be imperfect, the compassion to heal, and the courage to grow. So often we seek validation outside of ourselves, hoping that if someone else approves of us, it will fill the gaps in our self-worth. But the truth is, no amount of external validation can substitute for the deep, unshakable foundation of self-acceptance. This kind of belonging doesn't mean you won't feel lonely or long for connection with others. Those desires are human and natural, but when you belong to yourself, loneliness doesn't define you. It becomes a feeling, not an identity. You understand that your worth isn't determined by who shows up for you, but by your ability to show up for yourself. Belonging to yourself also means becoming your own safe space. It's learning to listen to your needs, honor your boundaries, and trust your instincts. Instead of relying on others to fill your emotional gaps, you learn to meet your own needs first. This doesn't mean you won't need others or that you should isolate yourself. It simply means you approach relationships from a place of wholeness rather than emptiness. Imagine what it would be like to treat yourself with the same love and kindness you wish to receive from others. To celebrate your victories, comfort yourself in your struggles, and speak to yourself with compassion instead of criticism. When you belong to yourself, you no longer seek relationships out of desperation or fear of being alone. Instead, you seek them out of joy, curiosity, and a genuine desire to connect. This kind of belonging takes work. It requires unlearning years of messages that told you your value depended on your achievements, your appearance, or how well you fit in. It requires sitting with uncomfortable emotions and resisting the urge to numb or distract yourself. And it requires choosing yourself over and over again, even when it feels easier to chase external approval. But the rewards are profound. When you belong to yourself, you are free. Free from the need to prove your worth. Free to walk away from relationships that don't honor you. Free to live a life that feels authentic and true. This freedom doesn't mean you won't face challenges or that you won't still crave connection. It simply means you've built a foundation strong enough to carry you through those challenges with grace and resilience. Belonging to yourself is not about rejecting others. It's about creating a space within you where you can always return no matter what life throws your way. It's about knowing that even if you feel unseen or misunderstood by the world, you are never truly alone because you have yourself. And in that belonging, you'll find the strength to open your heart to others, not out of need, but out of abundance. When you belong to yourself first, you stop chasing relationships that were never meant for you. Instead, you attract the people and connections that align with who you truly are. And when those relationships come, they'll feel different, not because they're perfect, but because they're built on a foundation of mutual respect and authenticity. You'll no longer feel the need to perform or hide parts of yourself to keep someone in your life. You'll know that the right people will see you, value you, and cherish you just as you are. In belonging to yourself, you unlock the kind of freedom and peace that no one else can give you. You learn to walk through life with your head held high, your heart open, and your spirit grounded in the knowledge that you are enough just as you are. We live in a world that celebrates networks but undervalues depth. Being a woman without friends doesn't mean you're without value. It means you have an opportunity to build connections from a place of authenticity. So to the woman who feels unseen, unheard, or alone, know this: you are not defined by the friendships you lack, but by the courage it takes to keep your heart open to possibility. And possibility is where the magic begins. Thank you.